for the next 2 to 3 weeks at foodtalks.ca/films. You can see all the different presentations from tonight. Feel free to share them or email them to your friends around the world. That's what it's there for. Email them to your friends that you can make it tonight. And obviously, you've learned a lot, and I'm sure you're able to. So I'm going to start the questions off because I've got a pointed question at Daniel. He said one thing about problems, that every problem is an opportunity for him. So I see a problem. As a food writer, I see an interesting situation happening. So you open a restaurant, you think, great, there's nobody around here. I've got this whole community sewn up to myself. Then along comes another restaurant, and you find out they're opening right across the way from you. They've got the same liquor products that you have, and more. They've got food. They're not a local company, but they're coming from back east. But they're aiming to make a huge splash in Vancouver. What do you do? So I'll just back up the scenario for everybody who doesn't know the restaurant business. There's a company called Kraft about to open in Olympic Village within feet away from Daniel's Tap and Barrel. That's a problem to me, but you think problems are opportunities. So I'm curious to you, how you know they're opening next summer. Since you've learned that these guys are opening, what is going through your mind of how you're going to take this problem and make it an opportunity for yourself, for Tap and Barrel, to captivate all your customers?
So Kraft, interesting story. So first of all, you're right. It's Kraft. It's called Kraft Beer Market. It's a group out of Calgary, Alberta, and they do a really good job, I have to say. And how do I know this? Because when I was up there a few minutes ago, I said, no, it's all about being good to people, and one of them was your competitors. I flew to Calgary on Thursday, a few days ago, last week, and I'd actually invited PJ LaRue, who's the principal of Kraft. There's a few partners. I invited him to our grand opening of Tap and Barrel. Even though we opened July 16th, we only did our official grand opening. It was a soft open for a while, and I called him up and I invited him to Tap and Barrel to our opening. We met there. And the next morning we met at the Terminal City Club and we had breakfast. And I got to know him. I flew to Calgary on Thursday because I wanted to know what it was about, but I also wanted to get to know him a little better. And I spent Thursday night, my dad came with me, George right over there. We had a lovely flight out there. It was only an hour and 20 minutes, which is good. And we went to check out Kraft, and then in fact he picked me up at the hotel and we went out, and I asked him what his favorite places are in town, and we went bar hopping. We hit about 5 or 6 places, got back to the hotel at 2 in the morning. So, being good and getting to know your competitors equally is important. At the end of the day, I really truly believe that competition breeds trade. A lot of people felt it was very risky, and I won't disagree, to go into the Olympic Village. At the time, it was a very volatile market when I committed to that building a few years ago. The city was getting blasted with negative PR. So I always saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful, well-planned civic community that they planned from day one. It's on the seawall. I mean, it fit all the criteria of my establishments, not unlike the Mill and the Pirate Pub. The great locations, waterfront, beautiful west-facing patio, and we do differ a bit in concept. Sure, they're a big beer house and maybe a little more of a bar, but where we differ is that we are celebrating BC, and our hashtag at Tap and Barrel is BC on Tap. We really brought the wines on tap into the market. When we started doing the wines on tap, there were 2 New Zealand-based wines that were available, and David, our sommelier, worked very, very hard to bring on board wineries from all across the Okanagan. Road 13, I'll mention as an example, who's what they say in the beginning, they won't sell their wines to us by the barrel on tap. He managed to get them on board. They saw the volumes we were doing and they were thrilled with the quality. And so, we differ a little bit because we really focus on BC on tap, BC in the kitchen, fresh, local, seasonal. But we are very similar. We both will have a great lineup of beers. They'll have some local beers as well, but they'll also have an international slate of beers. But at the end of the day, the more people, we were blown away. We opened July 16th. we were serving between 1,500 to 2,000 customers a day at Tap and Barrel. We're a 500-seat restaurant, 300 on the patio, 200 inside over the 2 floors. And we were, doing a tremendous volume, which really gave us a bit of a kick in the ass in the beginning, and it took us a while to, and we were happy about that, but a slower start would have been a little more advantageous. Anyway, it's an amazing community. There's room for more, and I hope it doesn't end with craft, to be honest with you. I hope more. I talked to John Neitz yesterday, and he's putting JJ Beans in on 1st Avenue, right near Manitoba there. That's fantastic. That, all these companies, Terra Breads is there. There's a lot of unique companies coming in, and I hope along 1st and 2nd and beyond, there's about 15,000 residences going in between the Canby Corridor and Main Street. There's going to be room for all of us there, and I think it'll become, much like Gastown, where, great places starting popping up, and now it's a great destination. And, there was a time that you wouldn't really like to go to Gastown. It was tough to park, it was, it was a little seedy. So, I think the whole community is really, is going to be building up, and I'm very happy that we were the first in the community and that we've had the opportunity to establish our roots. By the way, not unlike the mill in Cole Harbour back in 2002 when we built it, 2003 when we opened. Wasn't much in Cole Harbour at the time at all. People thought we were a little crazy to open there, and it worked out. So, they're good guys, and I'm happy I got to get to know them, and I'm happy they're coming to town. So it is a positive.
Don, my question's for you. We worked a little bit together, and you've been in this business for a very long time. You're the grandfather on the stage tonight. What makes you passionate? What gets you up every morning? I mean, you've written cookbooks, you've got a restaurant that's successful. Richard forgot to mention that you have a documentary film that you filmed in India about local and foods. So what gets you up every day and makes you want to go to work?
Well, if I didn't say it in my talk, developing this passion that's grown to the extent that it has been such a gift to me. Because as a young kid, I didn't know what else I wanted to do, and I didn't know how much I liked the food business. And now every facet of it I love, and especially the connections with the farmers and the local, that whole seasonal stuff, and the people I meet, like Daniel was saying. I've met so many amazing people and continue to meet amazing people, and whilst I'm sort of retiring age, if you like, it's not on my agenda. What would I do? My only hobbies are collecting art, and my wife tells me I have enough of that. And anything to do with sterling silver that relates to food, I collect that. But again, it's so, and I paint a little bit. But food is my life. Food has become my life, and the restaurant really is an extension of my home. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Hamid, you told us about the ketchup story for getting fired. I've also been fired from a number of jobs. I'm wondering, what's the greatest story about getting fired, or your best reason for getting fired?
I've been fired a lot, so it's a little bit difficult to pick a best.
A personal favorite then?
I think the ketchup was my personal favorite, because honestly, it was like being on an assembly line from the I Love Lucy show, and these damn ketchup bottles, one and two after another, coming in and filling them up, and my date is waiting, Patricia was waiting, and I couldn't get out of there fast enough, and that was it.
Follow-up question, how'd the date go?
The date was great. We stayed together for 5 years, so it was worth getting fired for.
It's kind of aimed to the whole Fall Street community. I noticed that the restaurants are coming in, and there's a lot of great spots there. I've also noticed, since I don't live too far away, that parking is atrocious. Are you guys aiming to try to build a micro community there, regardless of the competition? Because there is a SkyTrain and there are buses, but as you can see day in, day out, it gets very, very condensed up there. And are you afraid, because people will inevitably drive in from other areas, do you think that that's going to cause a problem down the road? Because I don't, in that area, see a whole lot of parking going on.
Yeah, it was, well, the area by design was, I think, it was designed to have poor parking because, and I think the city's doing that on purpose right now. They're trying to force you to take public transportation, to cycle and whatnot. So it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. We're very lucky because there's the SkyTrains on both corridors, Cambie and Main. We're right on the seawall. We've got the Aqua Bus and the False Creek ferries coming right in front of us, right to the village. There aren't a lot of spots. We're lucky because right under our building there's actually 99 parking spots in the community center. So a lot of people don't realize that, and it's actually pretty cheap parking. But that will get occupied as well when more people come. So we have actually been discussing what to do about that. And we started a discussion actually with Ian Tostenson, who's president and CEO of the BC RFA. And I had lunch with him about 2-3 months ago. And we met with a few cycle advocates. And because Ian's a cyclist, and I know I don't look like it, but I am an aspiring cyclist. I certainly have the gear and the spandex. I just don't put it on that often. And I usually put on shorts on top of it because I'm a little embarrassed. But nonetheless, so we have been talking about everything from a bike valet service. We've talked to the city about taking up a few spots down below and building a storage space where we can valet the bikes. We actually convinced the city finally to put those bike racks, which you see there in front of us right now. And those are temporary, by the way. We're getting those upside down staple racks coming in. We're getting about 16 of them on the north side of us, and just directly to the west of us, by that First Nation sculpture, we're getting, I think, about another 8 or 9 of those. So that was very, I mean, we were quite tenacious with the city, and it was, believe it or not, it was actually quite an arduous task to convince them to put those in. Those are temporary. They're producing real ones now. We should go in the next couple months, and I'm, meeting with Bill Ojla for lunch soon, the operations manager for the city. But yeah, that's I think that's the way the city planned it. Is it's a great community to walk and bike. And
what in your mind is challenging for you?
One of the biggest challenges is probably working with my father and my partner. Or maybe it's challenging for them, I'm not sure. But I'd say that's a big challenge. There's a lot of challenges all the time, like weeding is a challenge. You can't stay on top of it. Couch grass is insane, and that's what we deal with all the time. For the summertime, as far as challenges, there's some with importing certain herbs and the different pricing that you have to deal with. Let's say if you're getting import teas and things like that, which is why we focus on local. I guess for a certain kind of thing with my personality, I don't like being told you can't do that. So that's a challenge for me. And so I like to challenge that as well. So it becomes interesting for dealing with, let's say, other countries or other people and things like that, when I have an idea and I think that it's doable, and then having to focus that into, is it doable? And actually, does it make sense? And normally it doesn't at start, but then I kind of squeeze it into that. So I have a lot of challenges with making, listening to the no. No, you can't do that actually. And then it's like, well, why not? So that's I think the challenge is not always saying why not, sometimes listening to that and not just always learning my own way. So those are some of the challenges. Aside from that, I think there's a lot of different challenges that are business oriented, but because for me, I'm just creative, I just find that I just have to challenge myself into making it, let's say, make sense on a piece of paper at the bottom line. I don't do that, I don't think that way at all. I just think this is what I like to do, and then I have to go and crunch it and does it make sense, right?
My question is based on when you are having your business, that's really the primary foundation of it, is products of integrity, quality, and ideology based around that, first and foremostly, and how you cope with competing with people who money is the bottom line.
It's a really, it is a tough decision to make sometimes, and that's something I think where it's great working with Martin on some of these things, because he helps keep me grounded, because sometimes it's a little bit tempting. Because I mean, when a supplier comes to you and says, well, you're buying buttermilk, and this is how much it costs, your competitor is now using buttermilk powder or milk ingredients. Have you considered using that? It's a quarter of the cost. Go, Well, one of the things about with regards to ingredients, I really like is I actually know the farmers. And when I asked her, I said, so where does this milk powder, this modified milk ingredient come from? Well, it could be coming from China, it could be coming from New Zealand, it could be coming from India. We don't really know, it's usually blended. I said, well, that's not actually okay for me, because I don't buy foods where it said imported by. I like to know where it's made. And that was one of the things. I mean, this is stuff we make. We make it for all you to eat, but we eat it too. And I want to know where my ingredients come from. I had a question the other day. So the cattle that the buttermilk comes from, are they grass-fed? And I could actually get in touch with the dairy and say, well, you know, we have this question. I've never had it before. Can you answer it? Or things like, oh, do the cattle get treated with bovine growth hormone? And I said, I'm pretty sure they're not, but I'll confirm. And I can do that. And say even things like with our gluten-free oat supplier. They're from Saskatchewan, and it's like, so how often do you do the testing? And they'll send me all the test results to make sure things are gluten-free. So it's that connection that I think is really important. I think over time, people have lost that connection with their food. They don't know where it comes from. So if you don't know where it comes from, how do you appreciate it? So I think that's one of the key things for me.
I was a restaurateur for 25 years, and apparently over 70% of the food that's consumed in this country is genetically modified or altered in one way or other because of concerns of cost as well as concerns of yields. At the same time, we are seeing more and more of our friends and family who are becoming ill or allergic because of the consumption of these foods. Do you ever see a possibility of turning the clock back? I think that's a question for Kalpna.
I think one of the things that's really important is, as consumers, we have the opportunity to vote with our wallets. And I think one of the things that it was quite fascinating. I don't know how many of you heard about Proposition 37 that was in California with regards to genetically modified crops. And when I looked at the list of some of the companies that actually provided funds to fight the labeling, I was really astonished, because some of them were companies that I buy their products, like Cascadian Farms. There were some other ones there too that were familiar, that were organic companies. And then I tracked it up, and you look at this and you go, okay, these are organic companies, but they are owned by General Mills, by Kellogg, all of these other companies. And so it was very interesting, because there was a huge consumer backlash. And on Facebook, someone posted this information, and they have links to each of those companies' Facebook pages. And the backlash from consumers was astonishing, saying, Cascadian Farms, thanks, but no thanks, I'm not going to buy your products anymore. So I think that's where we have an opportunity. The other thing is supporting local, because when you have local, you know what's going on. You have, and if you have questions, you can actually contact people and say, well, so what do you think? You know, like that person that asked me about whether the cows were grass-fed or not. So I think over time, I think that will happen. That as consumers, if we make a fuss saying, you know, this is not okay for me, then I think companies will have to revisit how they do things. I think it's going to take time, because there's a lot of big food businesses involved with this. Like, it's amazing when you look at who owns who. And, but, you know, maybe it's wishful thinking on my part, but I think things will change.
Now, what would be your perfect local seasonal dinner that you would have here in the winter?
Oh, in the it's easier than you think. I mean, the temperature dictates in my kitchen anyway at home, and also in the restaurant. It's comfort time. It's comfort food, whether it's vegetables or pasta, a slow roasted. Roast is a wonderful thing, or stew. I make all those things. I still cook for my kids every day. They're older now, and the tastes have broadened a little bit. So yeah, I would say years ago, when we had menus that didn't reflect any local food at all. Fine dining was made up of food that was imported from everywhere else except Richmond had strawberries. Did we use them for the restaurants? No, we didn't 30 years ago. Now you can go and have simple, almost rustic foods in all sorts of little places in the city, which is exciting. And personally, for home, comfort. yeah, that's what I like to cook, yeah.
I think there might be some opportunity to cooking with tea. I don't know if you've done cooking with tea before, but we've got a nice local
I always have a cup of tea with
and cook the two together.
I think it's rooty vegetables. Anything that would be a soup or a stew or a poutine. I love poutine. Poutine, actually, it's French. Yes, but I think that's for the local foods right now in season, and anything with the local cheese and of course things like that. So I think you can make really good meals with the local ingredients. And with tea, actually, this year we've gotten a lot of things done with the tea. So we've done, like I was saying, soda. We've done, of course, you can do stews. We've done rubs on. Well, Cedric likes his meat more so than I do, but he's done chicken, you know, with rubs. We've done actually dressings for Wanderlust. It was a big yoga festival, so they used an Earl Green, like an Earl Grey, but it was a oolong that they used that was bergamot, and they converted that into a gelato, which was really wonderful, and also a dressing for a kind of like a citrus-based dressing for a beet and goat cheese salad. So that was amazing. What else? Gosh, you can make it into anything. Desserts. I mean, a lot of people have cooked for making beautiful desserts with tea. I think it's kind of actually depends on your imagination. You can basically use it as any liquid form or dry form, rubs or whatever. And actually, somebody's converting our root beer into rubs for pulled pork or making it into barbecue sauces. So you can basically do so many things. There you are. So yeah, so you can do a lot of different things, and I think it's just sky's the limit with tea as far as what you can do as a liquid form or dry form or in creating into any kind of, whether it's an appetizer or anything like that. Actually, people have been doing all sorts of interesting jewelry with tea. You can do so many things with tea. It's amazing. Dyeing clothes with it and things like that. So
smoking.
You can ferment it, make some kombucha.
Smoking.
Smoking, yes, a lot. Yes.
Smoking fish or.
Yeah, actually, we did. There was the cornucopia event, and they were. There was tea. Actually, was our teas. One of them was a Baihao oolong that the chef from Raxi created a beautiful souffle with that. So it was kind of a naturally fruity kind of tasting oolong tea, and that was wonderful. Tried the souffle, it was excellent. And the other guy actually smoked the tea and made a smoked tea salmon dish. So that was wonderful. So yeah, you can. I think it's unlimited.
I don't know how many farmers are in here. Me and my wife traveled for 9 hours to be here tonight, and we are ranching in the Chilcotin area. We are biodynamic, certified organic cattle, pork, sheep, poultry producers and eggs, and our manager here on Commercial Drive sells our meats. It's called Pasture Plate. I'm not here to advertise, but I certainly, it is heartwarming to hear that people like with that sort of profile are considering local production, BC production. We are 100% BC, and so many others. And it is beautiful to see that we concentrate on this province, on food we know. We can check on what we buy. Like Kalpna said, we vote with our dollars.
I just wanted to add to that, as consumers, it's something for us to be aware of. I just read a recent report that talked about how Canada's food trade deficit is increasing. We are importing more food year by year. We're importing more food than we export. And for a country that can grow so much, that's not a good situation to be in, because I mean, it all relates to food security. We'll get into a situation where basically we'll be held hostage because we will no longer be producing our own food, and then we'll have to import everything. So that's just something that I really, really work on in terms of trying to make sure to buy and support local, like Felix, right?
Right.
Yes.
Isabelle, could you just name the book that you were inspired by when you were 18 and just moved to Whistler?
Yeah, it's the Complete Medicinal Herbal. It's a really old book from a medical herbalist from the UK. And that's normally where a lot of people studied, because it wasn't that popular in Canada. There wasn't a lot of schools. At first there was one older school, but it's kind of grown a lot since then.
But I want to thank everybody else for coming. Again, it's a great night, great learning experience for all of us, I'm sure. Great speakers. So thank you to all the speakers again for joining us tonight.